Greetings fellow ukuleleans, Jeff Weinberger coming at you here with the new ukulele tutorial. This is part 2 of a previous tutorial from last week. We were exploring the song Route 66, the Nat King Cole version, and we looked at all kinds of alternative ways to play its chords. Instead of plain old 7th chords and plain old major chords and minor chords, we were spicing them up. We were using 6ths, we were using 13ths and 9ths and all kinds of good things. So that version that I just played, that was based on the first one that we learned, which was G6, C9, A minor 9, E flat augmented, and back to G6. So that we learned about last time. Let's check out the last couple of variations that I have for you. This will be a real quick one. I'm going to fly right through these. There's a great chord called G9, and that is a very simple chord to play if you already know how to play D minor. D minor being 2-2-1-0. All we do is swing our pinky around and add it to the 2nd fret of the A string to yield 2-2-1-2, and you got a nice G9 chord. So that's a good one. There's another G9 up here. I think I showed you this one in the last video, but just in case, that was 4-5-5-5. Just a higher voicing of this G9. They're both G9. So whichever one you choose is fine. You can use them both. There's a C13 chord, and that goes like this. It's 3-4-5-5. Requires all 4 of your fingers, but it's not too spread out. It's fairly easy and very sophisticated sound, very rich and kind of complex sound, C13. So that's something you might notice. The higher the numbers in a chord's name, oftentimes the jazzier and more sophisticated they sound. Jazz musicians do tend to use those chords that are 9ths, 11ths, and 13ths, as opposed to just G major, C major, and maybe D7 or something like that. Those chords would be more conducive to folk, rock, and more kind of basic sounds. And then these jazz chords like C13, I call it a jazz chord. It's not really a jazz chord. There's no such thing as a jazz chord. I mean, a C13 can be used in classical music or actually in blues music. Sometimes blues musicians will play 13th chords. So I don't mean to necessarily call it a jazz chord, but for lack of a better name, that's what we're calling it. So C13, again, that was 3-4-5-5. Great chord to know. Highly recommend it. There's this other one. It's a little difficult. Let's check it out. It's just kind of like a finger twister here, but it goes 5, 4, 6, 5. And as you can see, my 2nd finger's on top. Under that is my 1st finger, then my pinky, and finally my 3rd finger way down there. So C9 is a little hard to get to, but if you train your fingers, they'll get to it. So you could do like G9, that first chord that I played, and make your way up to C9. Those two sound smooth together. Or the G9 that I played up at the 4th fret, slips really easily into the C9 at the 4th fret. They're so close to each other that that's an easier chord change. And voice leading wise, it's kind of smooth sounding. Another chord that you could learn, this is C9. We have a lot of C9s in this. Here's another way to play 9th chords on your ukulele. You bar at the 3rd fret with your 1st finger, and then our 2nd finger is on the 4th fret of the C string, 3rd finger's on the 5th fret of the A string. So it's like that. And this is 3-4-3-5. C9. So it's great ways to play 9th chords on the ukulele. There's multiple ways. And then G7. This is a plain old G7. Not too terribly exciting, but it's up the neck, so it's nice. You know, it has a little bit of a higher sound, and it's slidable. You can do that sort of thing. A half step below slide, or even a half step above slide. below and above. So that's one thing I like about these closed position chords that don't use any open strings, is very slidable, which is a common thing to do in a swing or a jazz kind of setting like this. And then last but not least, we have two chords actually. G7 way up here is very high on the neck, but it's worth knowing. It's 7, 7, 7, 8. I generally use my first finger as a bar to achieve the 7, 7, 7 part. Very bluesy sound in G7. So that's a good one to know too. And finally, our last chord for Route 66 is yet another way to play C9. There's so many ways to play C9. But this one is way up at your 6th fret. It was the same thing that we were doing back here for G9 at the 1st fret. We just take the whole thing, we take 2, 2, 1, 2, and now we make it 7, 7, 6, 7. That's a C9. And that would be very conducive with the G7 that we played at the 7th fret, because it's nearby. And then also, you can do this G9, the one at the 4th fret, into this C9 at the 6th fret. They're kind of close together physically and voice leading wise. That one makes sense too. So usually that's a good rule of thumb. When you learn all these different ways to do chords, it's nice to find the ones that are the most compatible, the ones that fit together physically and fit together sound wise. And so if you're wondering, wow, I know like 10 different ways to play these chords now, but how do I choose which one is the right one? It's kind of your own taste. I mean, it's up to you what you like to hear, and it's up to your own technique, what is easier on your fingers, but it's kind of up to, does one chord move smoothly to the other, also known as voice leading. So that's one of the main criteria. Alright, ukulele people, I told you this would be a short one, and hopefully you have everything you need. The chord diagrams are on my Patreon page. You can go and find that at the link down below for Patreon. Bye-bye, ukulele people.